For millions of developers, including myself, if you've learned DevOps recently, you've probably learned it from this man, Mumshad Mannambeth. Now, his platform, KodeKloud, the labs in there that teach you in a hands-on way are exactly what I used to pass my CKAD exam. And today, the landscape is shifting from manual configuration to autonomous orchestration. So I have some tough questions to ask him. I need to ask him questions like, do we even need DevOps if AI is just going to do everything for us? And since I have him here, I'm finally going to ask him the toughest question in all of DevOps. How do you say this word? Mumshad, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. So I just got my reminder from the Linux Foundation that my certification is about to expire. So before I go through the effort of renewing my certification, do we even need Kubernetes anymore? Like, is it too complicated? Like, do I need to go and recertify here? What are your thoughts?
So first of all, thank you so much for having me on the show. Yes, I mean, absolutely. I think Kubernetes is kind of becoming how Linux was 15 years ago. It's kind of becoming the de facto standard for all of infrastructure. And it has already kind of won that container war. Kubernetes is the de facto choice for training AI models and inferencing AI models. So yeah, I absolutely think it's super necessary.
So who would you recommend learning Kubernetes for? So is that something you think anyone getting into software should know a little bit about Kubernetes? Should they go so far as getting a certificate? Or is it like you should know about the general concepts and what problem it solves? Or where do you sort of draw that line between everyone should learn it and this group of people?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, the CKAD certification, there's another one called CKA, which is, I guess, the more popular one. And the answer to your question is kind of the difference between these two certifications, right? So one is for administrators and the other is for application developers. So for the administrators, which are people who have in the past worked with Linux and VMware and cloud and learned all the different cloud solutions, learned GCP and AWS and got certified and all of that. So those who have come that route, they're the ones who are now owning the Kubernetes infrastructure. And so for them, it's basically the CKA exam, which covers all of Kubernetes. So that's administration, that's the networking concepts in Kubernetes, there's the storage concepts in Kubernetes, security, all of that. Now, the other half are the developers. And developers need to understand basics of Kubernetes, the basic constructs like pods and services and deployments, stateful sets, and what's the difference between a deployment and stateful set and all of that, in order to deploy applications on Kubernetes, in order to build applications that are to be deployed on Kubernetes. And so the CKAD certification is kind of a lighter version of the certification and covers only the things that are needed for a developer. So that's basically the difference. And there are other variations coming, like, for example, there's a CKS certification that's for security folks. That's like very much into the security side of things. There's a new one coming out for network. I think it's called CKNE, coming out later this year. And that's going to be specifically for networking, for the networking side of it.
I haven't shared this broadly, but I took the CKAD, passed it. I took the CKA and I did not. And I am very much on that developer side of things. But I will sort of affirm what you were saying along the lines of, even though I don't always run everything on Kubernetes or on Google Kubernetes Engine, I do still find myself even using Cloud Run and having those concepts from the CKAD and those concepts from Kubernetes, they apply in so many places, and that understanding really helps when going through all of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. So the containers, fundamentals of containers and how it's orchestrated, no matter what the platform is, Kubernetes or otherwise, it's a general knowledge that's applicable to everything.
And for those who want to dive deeper, they want to get all the way into like running their own LLMs across 200 different computers and all the GPUs associated with it. Is it clear that I have no idea what I'm talking about at this point? Because I have not built my own GPU farm. Okay.
Spot on, because we were just at KubeCon last week in India, and we were at KubeCon in April in Amsterdam. And one of the big announcements was around the projects around running LLMs on Kubernetes, running large language models on Kubernetes. So there are a bunch of projects that have newly been introduced, like LLMD, there's the K agents and K-serve and all of that. So new projects that are specifically for this area. And I think this is super important going forward.
One question I've heard a lot on the development side, but I wanted to ask on the DevOps side is, look, if AI agents can write all of the code, if they can do all of the things, why do we even need humans in the loop anymore? Why do we need someone in DevOps who knows these things if AI can just do all of it for us?
Yeah, I think I have a very generic answer to the question around why you need humans if there's AI. I think AI, as of today, it's advanced a lot, especially in the past, past year with the new models that are coming out, and we're just blown away by the quality of the output from these models. I feel like if you have to be the domain expert to use AI to kind of 10x your productivity, and there are developers who are actually doing that. The technical developers who are really good at what they do are using AI to increase their productivity. And I think generally, if you don't have the strong foundations, then you're not going to be able to know what AI is generating, whether it's good or bad, right? So one of the examples I would like to point out is, say, a graphic designer. Today, anyone can generate a logo or any sort of graphic with AI, and it does a pretty good job a lot of times. But then out of the 10 designs that it generates, like what's good and what's bad, and what suits our brand and what doesn't, only a really good graphic designer has that eye. So I would prefer a trained graphic designer to use AI to increase their productivity, but like I wouldn't recommend anyone else to do that. The same goes for software developers, right? So when people without dev skills, they might build something, it might work for the first few times, and then it's just inevitably going to break, and it's not going to work after. And I think the same goes for DevOps. To answer your question, you can get AI to do some DevOps stuff, but like, what do you want to do? You need to have the domain knowledge to be able to instruct AI to do the right thing. And if it's going off track, you want to be able to see that and notice that and pull it back to the right track. So I think those decisions have to be made by people who does have foundational knowledge.
So you very much work in the education and learning space, and you've taught many, many developers, including myself, just a little bit about something or a lot about a lot of things in my case. So how do you see those developers learning and then acquiring skills and then going into, say, coding interviews, or those, maybe it's that first job, or maybe now people trying to find that second or third? In the beginning of my career, it was basically like every 2 years you'd have to go and find a new role because the market was changing so quickly. How do you recommend people learn, or like, what is the future of those coding interviews? What should they be preparing for?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be much faster now, right? I guess like things are just moving a lot faster now, and everyone is overworked too, right? Like we're all working a lot more hours now, just because you can get a lot more things done, and you're feeling like you're being productive and you're able to do a lot of things. Whether you are or not, that's a different question. But I think there's a lot more need to learn right now, because like the entire world has overnight had a need for learning a whole bunch of new things with AI, with respect to AI. So be it understanding the fundamentals of how AI works, and LLM foundations and AI agents, and how do you train models, and how do you run models, and how to inference them, and all of that. So there's this whole infrastructure side of things that the sysadmins need to learn to be able to get themselves ready to upskill for the AI kind of revolution. And then you have on the developer side, you need to learn how to build AI agents and be able to use the right models and things like that. And coding interviews, a lot of companies have, in the past couple of years, especially the new startups, originally it was like take-home assignments, and before that there weren't any take-home assignments. You would just interview somebody and hire them, and then it switched to this mode of like take-home assignments. And then there was the lead code kind of assignments where you're like on live and coding. And I guess in this world, it's now going to be like completely different. And the take-home assignments does not make any sense anymore because everyone's going to use AI and just build the best kind of solution for everything. Even like resumes, right? So from a recruiter perspective, like we all get like awesome resumes, and when we have conversations, we get like a completely different picture. And so I think interviews are going to be much more important for the employers, and I guess for the candidates, I'm thinking a more hands-on and more lead code kind of things would come up, but maybe different, So maybe you're not doing coding exercise, but at least maybe you're using AI to build something the right way, and the instructions and the reviews are going to be based on the kind of instructions you give AI, and if you're able to direct it the right way, if you're able to design the architecture. So a lot of system design kind of concepts would be more important going forward. You want to be able to architect the right solution. And I guess a lot of us have become like managers instead of like individual contributors building stuff. We become managers of agents. There are like a lot of agents that are doing the same things, different things at the same time. And you just need to be like now really good at having a lot of context in your mind to be able to spread it across different agents. So I guess those are the changes that I'm noticing.
Oh my goodness, there's so much to dive in there. The concept of like, oh, this was supposed to do all of this work and we're doing so much more work, shouldn't we be working less? And it's like, oh, it definitely doesn't feel that way. But the thing I really want to pull out of that is you talked about like more higher level concepts like architecture or like system design. And how do you decide? Because I've always been overwhelmed with like the number of resources available, right? Like if you only learned 1% of all of software, that would take more than an entire lifetime. So how do you prune down to these are the specific things that I'm going to learn? Because I found that to be the hardest part is with AI, like, yes, things are changing every 2 weeks, but I don't have 80 hours a week to learn everything that just changed. So how do you narrow it down to like, these are the specific things that I am going to learn right now? Because otherwise it's just too overwhelming.
I think one of the most asked questions around along similar lines is around the CNCF landscape, which is, I'm not sure if you've seen that. If you go,
I've seen it. It's terrifying, but we'll put a picture up so that everybody knows what we're talking about.
And the question I get a lot is, so we cover a lot of those tools that are there in our courses, but it's just way too many projects, right? And people come asking, like, how am I going to learn all of this? Do I need to learn all of this that are here, all of that? So one of the things we say is, like, you want to pick one from each group, pick one that's like the most popular. Like, say for service mesh, it'll be Istio. And then once you learn that, you're going to learn a lot of things that are around it, like Envoy proxy and other similar projects. And once you gain that information, then you should be able to apply those concepts to anything else. And it's going to be easy for you to kind of transition from that one tool to the other. So I guess the same goes with everything that's happening these days, right? Containers too, like when you learn Docker, you learned a lot of things, and then came Podman, which is a similar solution, but works differently. But the thing is, Podman can still work with the Docker commands. It's just underneath it works differently, or Docker-like commands, command line arguments and everything are the same. It's just the CLI is different. So I think there's some care put in by the developers too to make it easy for people to transition from one project to the other. But I guess learning and identifying those kind of clusters and learning one tool, whatever is the most popular tool in those cluster, should suffice the learning need.
I love that so much because I've found that oftentimes I can learn a tool really well, but then it's when I learn the second tool that solves the same problem that I really understand the concepts. So for me, that was like when I learned AngularJS, it was like, okay, I kind of understand this front end development thing. And then when I learned React, it was like, oh, okay, like here are the similarities between them because they're solving a very similar problem, but the underlying concept. So when you said like, we've got Docker, and we've got Podman. Like learning that second thing, I've always found to be so helpful. But I really like your ability to narrow it down and say, no, just pick one of the things that solves the problem, and that's enough. Okay, so as people are learning all of these different topics that we've talked about, there are a million different ways to learn now. And learning is different because AI can kind of hand us answers if we want to take the easy path. What sorts of things are you recommending to learners as they are trying to pick up a new skill or understand a topic?
Yeah, I think one of my approach to learning these days is to, of course, it's always to do by yourself, right? I think there is no better way to learn than to learn by doing. That's kind of our motto as a learning platform. And if I try to learn something today, I would obviously open up like Cloud Code or Codex or one of the coding platforms, and ask it to kind of coach me instead of just telling me what to do. And I try to figure stuff out on my own and like install stuff and build things on my own. And I think that's been one of the kind of the biggest unlocks for me in learning things fast. In fact, even before going through like a video or something, I would just try to do stuff with the help of AI and just helping me figure out the things that are not working. And it would give me some high-level ideas or a lot of questions by the time I'm done with that. I would get things to work, but I wouldn't know really how it worked. And then with that context, I would go in and learn, and that would like help me really understand that really fast. So I was just playing around with some sort of the video generation models and image and video generation models. I had no idea what the models were or how they worked or how they were hooked up, but I just took the pain to just try and build it out myself, and I ended up having like a lot of questions, a lot of terms that I've never heard before, and then with that context, I went in to learn, and it was very easy for me to pick those up. So I think we built something similar to that on our platform because we've been primarily a video-based, lab-based hands-on learning platform. And we have been building what is called as AI Tutor, which is a hands-on first, but AI-assisted kind of learning solution.
Okay, I'm gonna have you show me that in just a second, but I want to recap what you're suggesting is essentially have these AI tools, these LLMs, explain to you what is going on. And well, is it you have a topic you want to learn, or do you have a problem you want to solve? Which approach do you take?
So either way, right? The problem I want to solve is usually at work, or I need to get something done. And in those cases, I just want to get it done. So I would just go ahead and ask it to just do it for me and solve it for me. But if I am in the learning mode, and if I am kind of exploring something completely new, something that I really want to learn, then I would ask the AI to kind of coach me into it. Don't just do it for me. Like give me some high-level steps or high-level tasks that I'm supposed to complete. Then I would do that. Then I would ask it to kind of verify if I did that correctly. If I didn't, then ask it to explain what went wrong.
Well, I do want to see this thing you built. Where do I go to test it? What's the URL?
So if you go to ai.kodekloud.com.
Okay, hold on. I'll pull it up here. Okay, so I'm here. It looks like my account's still good. My profile picture is a younger version of me, so I love that. And I want to learn. So what can I put in here? How limited are we in scope?
So this is purpose-built for infra side of things, right? So it's specifically built for all the environments that you see there at the bottom, starting with Linux all the way to Kubernetes and everything in between. And there's one cloud environment right now, which is AWS. We're going to be soon adding GCP as well and Azure too. But if you expand the Explore environments, and there's a view all at the bottom, you'll be able to see all the environments that are available. So you can kind of learn anything that's in this realm. So maybe we could pick Kubernetes and get started.
Yeah. So I want to prep for my CKAD exam.
So I would suggest like giving it a specific topic within CKAD. So pods or services or deployments or anything like that.
let's up the ante and go to services, because there I start to get a little fuzzy.
Yeah. And if there's anything specific, right, within Kubernetes that you want to learn, like troubleshooting a specific use case, that's the area that it really shines.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then I need to decide how vulnerable I'm feeling right now, because I will admit that networking is the part of the exam that I did not excel at. So part of my story is in 10 weeks, I passed 10 Google certifications, and there are 11 of them. And the one I didn't pass is the networking one, because that is still an area where I struggled. That's just not my background. So I'm curious, maybe I go load balancer integration and see if
or you could just let AI pick the goal, or
okay. Yeah, let's do that. Oh, yeah. I see the recommended there.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It just if you are in doubt, it can just pick a random one for you.
Cool. And this course, is this pulling from your existing material on the platform, or is this literally just generated on the spot, or a combination of the two?
So this is just generated on the spot.
Very cool. Are you, I don't want you to give away your secret sauce, but is it pulling back from like the course catalog that you have as content, or is it using RAG in any way, or is it literally just from?
Yeah, it does have some sources. So our notes from our courses are one of the sources. It also looks up Kubernetes documentation pages, but we are going to give away a lot of secrets. So just so you know, after you're done with the demo, I'm going to walk you through how this is built and the agentic definitions behind and all of that. We will do a walkthrough.
Yeah, let's say start learning. All right. So what is so here we've got like a picture of like Kubernetes services.
This is a lesson that is generated, and it has an image within the lesson. So there's some text, and then there's the image, and that is not just an image, it's also a video.
The front-end pod on the left needs to talk to your backend, but those IPs change constantly. Instead of tracking individual backends, it just sends requests to the backend-svc name. The service acts as a permanent receptionist for your pods with a stable cluster IP. It uses a selector to automatically group any pod labeled app equals backend. When a request hits the service, it load balances traffic to one of those active pods. That's the trick. The name stays the same even when individual pods die and get replaced.
That's so cool. Maybe we start with the voice. Who is the voice? Because the voice, that's not me, that's not you. Who is that voice? Is it just generated?
It's just an AI generated voice, and we use 11 labs for it.
That's good.
And we kind of picked a voice that sounds very kind of realistic, not like an AI generated voice, right? We wanted it to be very, very friendly. And the visuals is actually an image from code, a code-based image. So it's not actually just an image, it's basically code, UI actually. And then we kind of overlay the audio on that video.
That's very cool. What is the like code? Is the code image your own custom thing, or is that what's the name of that popular library?
React.
Oh, well, there's another like React tool for generating videos. It sounds like it's not that.
It's just a React based image.
Okay. Is that how it felt like it generated so fast?
While we were chatting on the previous screen, it generated behind the scenes so that by the time you get here, it's already there and ready for you.
Oh, that's very clever. So while I was going through and selecting those options, it was already hard at work on creating the diagram.
Yeah.
That's very cool. All right. And this is the YAML, and I always forget the YAML. So like I know this is where I'm going to bomb out. And I've got like the world's most qualified person in the world to watch me embarrassingly like muddle my way through this. So I'm going to click quiz, but I need you to promise the judgment is going to be low.
Yeah, no worries.
You have a back-end app running in 3 pods. Your front-end app is, folks at home, play along. You have a back-end app running in 3 pods. Your front-end app is configured to talk to the back-end using the IP address of one of those pods. After a cluster update, the front-end starts getting connection errors, even though the back-end pods look healthy. What is the most likely reason for this failure? Okay. So before reading the answers, I think it's that the IP address has changed.
Yes.
And So the backend pods changed their labels so the front end can no longer find them. No, I don't think it's that. The nodes running the pods were rebooted and changed their physical MAC address. I don't think the MAC address is it. The backend pods were replaced during the update and received brand new IP addresses. That's the one. The front end app lost its permissions to talk to the backend pods directly. All right, I'm going with this one.
Yep.
All right. Okay.
Awesome
Let's
job.
keep going. Practice. Oh no, now do I need to remember everything? Is it going to give me a hint?
Yeah, there are some instructions. But yeah, so this is the critical piece, right? So this is the terminal. So there's a live terminal to a Kubernetes cluster. So if you run a kubectl get nodes.
What did you call it?
Kubectl.
Kubectl. Okay. All right. I know that that's a lot of drama for a lot of people, but kubectl is the Mumshad official pronunciation of this 7 letters.
I have actually pronounced it differently myself. So originally I used to say kubectl, and then there was kubectl, then there's kubectl, and yeah, it's just evolved over a period of time.
So I followed this similar progression where it was kubectl, and then I was like, that's too many syllables. And then I learned that like in some of their documentation, Kubernetes was like the official pronunciation is kubectl.
Yeah.
But then I never got to kubectl. What is that final evolution? What phase have you gone through? Is it just like, it just felt more natural?
I don't know if it's from the West, but a lot of people have been calling that cuddle. Like there's other similar commands as well, right? So I think it's like it's carried over from those kind of historical commands over to kubectl as well.
Okay. All right.
And I like it. So easy. So you don't have to say control, just say cuddle. And yeah, and when I was recording like kind of hours of demo for the Kubernetes course, I found it very easy to just say cuddle. So I just kept saying cuddle.
It's definitely the cutest of the options. All right. I'm not going to let that distract us any more than it already has. Get pods. Is that what you said? No resources found. Okay.
So that's for the pods. But yeah, if you just want to get an idea about the cluster, you could just run get nodes.
Get nodes. So pods are the individual containers or a couple of containers running inside of a pod. And then the nodes are that's like the actual hardware that is running our application. Is that a fair?
Yeah, nodes are the servers usually, right?
Cool.
The worker nodes, as we call it. And pods are the workload that's run on those nodes. So currently, there are no workloads running, and there's just a single node Kubernetes cluster.
Okay. And my challenge here is pods are ephemeral and their IPs change. We're using a cluster IP service. It provides a single stable IP and DNS name to reach your pods. In this task, you will deploy backend pod and create. Okay, so we don't have any backend pods. If I was learning a different concept, would this pre-warm pods? Would it already like deploy services in advance? It would. Holy cow.
So if you were learning, say, troubleshooting or something, then the focus has to be on running the commands needed to troubleshoot, to look at the logs and to debug, all of that. So in that case, it would stage a couple of pods for you to troubleshoot. In this case, we're starting new. So yeah, it's blank.
Dang, that's very cool. Okay. All right. So we've got create the backend pod using the manifest provided. Okay. So there's already a manifest here. Okay. So I'm going to list out backend pod.yaml is what I'm going to do. So API version. Okay. So this is creating the pod here. Or the pods? I don't see a number in here. Is it just creating a singular pod or is it creating multiple?
Yeah. In this case, it's just one image and one pod. And is the Nginx Alpine image.
Okay. -f backend pod. Oh, I just tab. There we go. All right. It says it's created. Oh, and I could have just used this.
Yeah.
You didn't have to watch me type.
Yep.
Cool. And then use Vi or Nano. Can I use Vim? Let's see. Backend service. There we go. And we're going to create this. So it looks like it might already be here. No.
Deployment.
Oh, I did the wrong one.
Oh, and then you do have a service underneath. So I'm just checking you go back up, what did it ask you to do originally? Was it a pod or a deployment? In the instructions on the left-hand side.
So it asked me to apply the pod YAML.
Pod. Okay. So it just asked you to apply a pod. And now you're supposed to create a backend service.yaml, which does not already exist.
Oh, okay. And this is a third YAML
this
file.
is a third file. I'm not sure why that's there. Maybe there's something coming up.
Is it kind of like the answer key almost? Oh, yeah. We don't know exactly what the lesson is going to be, so who knows why it's there. Okay. And this is going to be backend service.yaml. And this is where I will paste this. And now can I do this?
Yeah.
Okay. I can. The indenting is a little, I'm going to.
This is a good time for you to use what we call as the live assist. So
okay.
On the live assist at the right corner. So this is a live assistant that is going to be watching what you're doing, and it's going to help you fix the issues, right? So if you could just quit. So this assistant now is kind of watching what you're doing exactly. So let's go back and try the same thing. So if you could just quit this file.
Okay.
Let's not save it. Yeah. Okay. Now right there, it says there's an indentation error. So let's go back and let's try that again.
Okay. All right. So we're here. I pressed I to insert, and now I'm going to paste that in. And now it calls out. So the paste here, the tab indents were a little off, which is now convenient because I get to go in here and actually make changes.
So there's an assistant on the right. So if you click on the KodeKloud AI, it will open up a chat. And for now, we're just going to ask it, say, whenever I paste the YAML file into Vim, it's messed up or something. Yeah.
Indentation is messed up. How do I fix that?
Yeah. So you need to set the set paste first and then paste it. And then it will maintain the indentation.
Interesting. Okay. So do I need to delete or
let's quit it.
Remove it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, we did not.
Oh, that makes sense. We didn't save it. Okay. So before entering insert mode, I'm going to say set paste.
Yep.
And now it won't try to do anything fancy. So now I'm going to insert and paste.
Yep.
Oh, beautiful. That's cool. So here it's two different assistants working. So this one is always giving me feedback, always helping me, and would have gotten me through there. It just would have been a little bit more step by step. And now if I mess this up just a little bit and went to port 8080 here.
Yeah. And maybe hit an enter or something. Yeah.
Very
so it's going
cool.
to tell you exactly where the problem is and what exactly is the problem.
And it highlights it too I'm curious, is this like a special gradient border with CSS? I know that that's not what you have prepared for me in the architecture diagram, but it's very cool.
Yeah, it is, and it's an overlay. So,
okay. All right. So now when I type ls, I'll see that I've got this backend service. It should match this. It says it's perfect. So here it's saying it's perfect already before I click check. Yeah. So is it basically confirming that it's good to go?
It's perfect. The manifest is perfect, but you need to apply it. That's what it's telling you. So now apply to create the service. So that step is still pending.
Okay. kubectl apply -f, and we will apply that backend service.yaml. Service created, selector matches the pod. Now I click check, validating. Task not complete. Okay, you've successfully created the pod and the service, but you missed the final verification step. Oh, I was supposed to run this. This is so cool. I feel like when I was learning software 10 years ago, it was like just wrong. And then I was like, okay, just broken somehow. Okay, but this is very specific, which is fantastic. And I forgot the command.
Yeah, it's on the left side. So if you scroll down, you should be able to see it.
There we go. Okay. Oh, yep. Okay. So I did this because that was one thing that I did actually remember from my time taking the exam the first time. Endpoints, backend, service. Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. And it's actually a very important command for the exam, because after you create stuff, you want to spend at least a few seconds verifying that you did it right. Otherwise, you're going to have problems. Yeah.
Because the exam will not tell you if
Yeah.
you got it right or not. Okay. Now I hit check and now I move on. I like that a lot. Okay. So you teased me with it earlier. I need to see, how does this work under the hood?
Yeah. All right. Let's get into it.
Yeah. You teased me with it earlier. I want to see, like, how does this work?
So let me start with a little bit of information. So you've already seen these labs. What we just saw was the AI Tutor, but
this looks very familiar from going through the program 3 years ago.
So we've improved it a lot since. But for those who have not seen the platform, we have a learn by doing platform where you have questions on the left and you have a terminal on the right, and you have certain tasks to do. And once you watch the video, you come here and you do the task and learn.
For me, the difference between this and like reading a textbook with this information or reading like 100 pages of documentation is just night and day. Like I just cannot focus on a textbook like that. So even the existing form is just so fantastic.
That's exactly how I was too. And I always learned, when I first learned coding, I learned it by doing through platforms that taught coding by doing. And I thought that would be a great idea to teach infrastructure by doing. So just to give you an idea, the lab sessions that we provision per day, this is a high level count of it. So we provision around 30,000 labs per day. And this is 90% is Kubernetes. So this is basically exclusive Kubernetes clusters for each student to go through that lab. And the other 10% would be Linux and other tools like Jenkins and Git and CI/CD and all of that. But like the majority of it is Kubernetes. A peek into the platform behind it, because a lot of people come to me and ask, especially at KubeCons, like how does your labs work and what do you do? So I just want to give a sneak peek into it. So we run on Google Cloud. We've been on Google Cloud for about 8 years now, and we originally started with the Google Cloud for Startups. There was a program, Google Cloud for Startups, and you get a certain amount of credits, like $100,000 of credits or something.
That's so cool. There still is that program. I'm going to be interviewing a few folks from that program over the next couple of weeks. So very cool. I had no idea that was part of the backstory. Very cool.
Yeah. That was and it was really great for us, a great help for us when we got started. And what we did with that was we built the Google Cloud infrastructure. We have a large Kubernetes cluster. Here it looks very small because it's just a diagram, but it's actually a pretty large Kubernetes cluster. And on that cluster, what we do is we provision multiple virtual clusters, and each one is assigned to a user.
Okay, I was going to ask, because spinning up a GKE cluster takes more than the 10 seconds that it took today. So
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we don't rely on the GKE cluster. We actually built our own cluster from the compute engines that are available on Google Cloud.
Got it. Cool.
And yeah, we have a monitoring stack with Prometheus that collects the metrics, and we have some dashboards that are built on Grafana. And there are some additional databases where MongoDB and others, where the session data is stored, and that goes into BigQuery, which is not here. But then we use the secret manager and IAP for auth, and then Ingress is the Google load balancer. So far, whatever I'm showing right now, this is just our lab infrastructure, not the AI part itself that's going to come up. So it was just, I just wanted to get into the why of the AI tutor, why we built the AI tutor first. So before we built the AI tutor, one of the things we did is we wanted to see what our audience's reaction is towards AI in this learning experience. Is this something they would like or not? And so the first thing that we built is we integrated an AI assistant to our existing labs. So if you see, this is the lab that you worked with, but then there's a new tab called AI Assistant at the top. And it's a normal kind of AI chatbot. that's integrated into the lab. And it has context about the current question. It has context about the terminal that's on the right and what information is there. And it has a context about what the user is asking. And based on all of that, it kind of gives the user the right instruction. And we ran it for about 12 months. And we actually saw that the users who used those features had higher retention. So they came back more, they completed the labs more, and they kind of liked the platform more versus the users that did not use it. So that was kind of the data that we needed to prove to ourselves that this is the right direction, and people actually like it. And we got a lot of feedback around it. And that is why we decided that we're going to continue to invest time on building the AI features.
What is the percentage? That looks like it's almost like a 50% difference in retention. What is the number there?
So it's almost double. So from where it was previously, from the 30% mark, it's gone up. So yeah, it's actually a very good sign for us.
That's wild. I don't know that any business has given the general public this level of access to like a specific feature of like, here's how it actually increased retention on this site. That's wild. That is a super cool number.
Yeah. And we were quite impressed, and we were thinking like, what's the next best thing we could do? And one of the things is we have about 180 courses on our platform right now, and it and counting. So most of the cloud native stack, we have courses on AWS, Google Cloud, and Azure. We have courses on, and these are like full-fledged courses. But our students often have requirements like, teach me the specific thing on Kubernetes. They always come asking like, I want to learn this and this and this, these three things on Kubernetes. And I often go like, we don't have that combination, but we have this course that covers a bunch of these. So things like I teach how a Kubernetes liveness probe can pass while the pod still crash loops, or I want to understand how Terraform state locking actually works, or walk me through what happens when the multi-stage build happens. So things like that are very, very specific.
This resonates so deeply because for a while I was like, I want to teach full stack development. And so I want people to be able to choose any front end, any back end, and any database. And anyone who's tried that very quickly figures out like the level of permutations as soon as you're like, okay, 3 front ends, 3 back ends, and 3 databases is like, oh, that is a lot of content, and it becomes impossible to keep it updated. So I think every educator in tech has hit this exact problem.
Yeah, and I thought that's where the AI Tutor like really comes in, because it can give micro lessons, and we wanted to keep it micro. We didn't want like people to go there and like learn like full learning paths, but like specific areas on specific environments that they can like really deep dive into. So that was kind of the premise of how this was built. Now we'll get into a little bit more technical details. So the whole idea is, so we have the AI Tutor at the center. We have a set of special agents that are responsible for one area, like the lesson, the diagram, the live assist feature that we saw. That's a special agent. The video generation is an agent, and then you have the tutor, which is the chat on the right, the special chat on the right. So these are like 5 different agents. There's a set of context inputs, and then there's a set of things that it can output. And there's the human in the loop, which is the learner. And at the bottom, you have the Google Cloud Platform. Now, we will zoom into each of these areas in 1 second, but I just wanted to highlight. And then there's the models on the bottom right. So we'll start with the first one, right? So we have the specialized agents, there's a lesson generation agent, there's a diagram generation agent, there's a video generation that's kind of linked to the diagram. And then you have the tutor, which is the chatbot, and then you have the live assist, which is the thing that pops up. And the way that it works is the framework that we used to build was LangGraph. And it's something that we had used earlier, and we were kind of very familiar with it. The way that this graph works, and this is one of the graphs of one of the agents, the way that it works is when the user request comes in, there's this intent classification that happens. So is it one of the intent is like an environment selection. And this is if the user requests for a topic, do we have an environment for that or not? So if the user asks like for something like completely different, then they kind of don't get a hands-on lab, but they just get a text-based lesson. And then there's the recommendation. This is when initially in the chat section where you let AI pick the topic, and if you wanted something else, you could chat with it, and it will recommend something else. So there's kind of the recommendation intent, and then there's a question responder, which is basically the chat. When you ask something on the chat on the right, it kind of hands it off to the tutor agent that basically responds to your question.
So because these are parallel flows, is that how like it was already generating the video in the background?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you start the original chat, you've already kind of kicked off the agent, and then every time you interact, you need something for it to be done. It kind of hands it off to these other side agents. So you have the environment selector, and this is basically, it has these different states, and one of it is generating. And this is where it's either generating a concept, or it's generating a quiz, or it's generating a hands-on exercise with the lab. If it's a concept, it has text, of course, but then if it hands off to an agent, it's basically for generating the diagram or creating a video out of that diagram. Similarly, you have the hands-on labs. This is where you have the live assistant, which is basically an agent that watches your terminal and watches what you're doing, and kind of gives you that instant feedback.
I need to ask about the video generation. So you've got the diagram, and then the video generation is like, everybody understands, very expensive, right? Does having the diagram, do you notice that that's just necessary for the raw material? Does it reduce the cost of the video? Does it increase how quickly you're able to generate it? What do you find with that?
Yeah. So the way it works is it's not really a video, as in a traditional video. It's actually a combination of like a UI that's generated by on the web, plus an audio which is generated separately. So it's very easy to generate audio. It's very easy to generate code, React code, UI code, and then we just mix it up. But it's not like a single video object. Yeah, the single video, you'll never get it right. Like it's very hard to get it right.
Yeah.
But in this case, and it is very costly, and the video is meant for, like, I don't know, movies and maybe for the future, or just experimenting right now, right? The video models are not there yet, and it's very costly. But this is kind of I would say, a made-up video, which has a lot more potential for us to get it right.
Oh, totally. How do you get the timing right? Because the audio, the things in the video were happening when the audio was saying.
Yeah. So that's the time sync. Yeah. So there's a time sync that happens. So when the audio is generated, we use 11 labs, so we get the timestamps for that audio, and then we kind of sync those timestamps to the UI elements and just make them appear as it is spoken.
That's so cool. That is very clever.
So yeah, I mean, this is something we've been kind of experimenting for a long time, because this is kind of the core of what we do, which is create videos for courses, right? And we found that this is a very helpful and easy way to get it done. Going deeper into some of the other areas, the models are, so we use different models for different purposes. And Gemini 3 Flash is something that we heavily rely on. I think it's like a lot of it is Gemini 3 Flash. And as a backup, we have some of the Claude and Sonnet models. Gemini 3 is like very cheap, and it's actually, I think, if I remember right, the total cost for an entire lesson is like less than 3 cents or something. So it's actually pretty cheap. And by the way, kudos to the team in building this. I did not build any of this. I just want to be upfront here. So we have a team of a great group of developers and engineers. My CTO Vijay and his team put all of this together. It's like months of their hard work. I just want to make sure I give the right credits.
I want to ask more about the models. Like Gemini 3 Flash, is that like 3.1? Is it 3.5? Is it a combination? One of my favorites for like super, you were talking about very inexpensive models. 3.1 Flash Lite is just wild, in my opinion. Is it kind of all of those?
It is all of that. I think they use, like, for each of these purposes, they're like tested and evaluated each model, and they've they have test cases, like evals written for each of these cases, and they test the models based on that. And I see like almost every day when a new model comes out, they're like immediately testing that and seeing if it produces a better output, then they kind of switch that. And as we know, the models keeps getting cheaper and faster. So yeah, every time a new model comes out, the guys are on top of it. And yeah, for voice we use 11 Labs. And the outputs, as we saw, it's always it's the lesson plan that's originally created. Then you have the diagram, and then there's the lab steps that are created after, and then you have kind of the live assist feature that does the that provides assistance. And then there's the human in the loop. So the whole system is not like you ask it to generate a lesson and just generates the entire thing end to end. It's actually step by step, and it's also kind of based on how the user progresses through the different steps, right? So you have the lesson generation at first, and along with the diagram and video generation, and then there's the MCQ generation. There's a step there where you wait for the user to like select the right answer, and then you have the lab that loads. So the lab is preloaded, and then once the lab loads, then it's completely human, right? Driven by human interaction. The live assist feature, the chat feature is all kind of dependent on what the action is performed by the user.
Will it go so far as like Luke made a lot of mistakes on this, so therefore the next step, or is it basically based on my final input, or what other?
Yeah, so it gets personalized as you use more and more. So we kind of store like kind of memories on how you go through the platform. And this is something we're still working on improving. Like what we want to do is get to a stage where the more you use it, the more it learns about you and what you're good at and what you're where you're having trouble and all of that. Kind of if you're getting a particular command wrong more, then we want to kind of store that and then give you more lessons to kind of help you get better at it. Yeah. So right now it goes through the entire lesson step, and at the end of it, it recommends what could be a potential next topic for you. So what you did just now is just the first part of the 3-part program for that lesson. So there were 2 more parts for that, and after that, it will recommend you the next session based on how you did in this session.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Okay, and then you have the context input. So this is what it gets for each call, right? So the current question that user is facing, and then you have whatever activity is happening in the terminal, the lesson and the current step, and the historical information. So kind of based on that, it comes up with the right next steps.
And the terminal is like the entire environment, right? The files on disk, and very cool.
Yeah, so the terminal is mostly what you see on the terminal. So if you're accessing a file, then it's that file information. But yes, I think we also do send the file details, even if you didn't open the file. But if there was something in the file that need to be changed or fixed or something, it still knows that because it generated the file in the first place, right? So that should be there in the memory. And the whole thing runs on Google Cloud Platform. So we have a compute engine, we have a Kubernetes environment, we have cloud storage, secrets, and IAP. And this is kind of a deep dive into that. So similar to our other environment, we have a bunch of Kubernetes nodes, a large Kubernetes cluster with a set of nodes. And then there are pods that are the environments that are loaded. There's a artifact registry. This is where the container images are. So for all of those environments that we saw, we have like pre-baked container images. There's a secrets manager, the IAP. And here's the more interesting part. So the agents themselves run on Cloud Run. And we kind of have this one per branch, which is basically in the dev environment. When we build new features, we put it in a branch, and you get to see different versions of the application in different branches. It's a very common development environment setup, right? And the most interesting part is here, which is the model armor. So the model armor is what we use to kind of filter anything that we send out of our environment into an external environment like OpenRouter. And this could be OpenRouter or Vertex. I think we kind of use both interchangeably. I think one is the kind of the backup for the other. So before we send anything out, what we do is any prompt that goes in goes through Model Armor to the model. And then when it comes back, it comes from the model through Model Armor to the user. So there's like a filtering happening in both sides, right? So what does it do? It basically identifies like prompt injection attacks, and it blocks them. Works with responsible AI. So anything related to hate or dangerous content, it blocks that. Child safety violations blocks that. Malicious URLs blocks that, and any sensitive information. So sometimes our users, students, accidentally send like, I don't know, a key or some password or their email or something like that. So we kind of mask all of that before sending it to the external environment. So here is an example where you say, if you ask, like, I want to learn how to poison a bird, it's going to prevent that. And this is actually happening because we have the Model Armor in place.
That's very cool. I've seen the team give a couple of examples of this, and it seems like this is their like dream of how someone might implement it on their site is like the perfect implementation.
Yeah, and that's basically it. It's like I guess I covered most of it, but yeah, if you have any additional questions, happy to answer.
How was was Model Armor added because you had the foresight at the very beginning of the project? Or was it like, oh no, these things are happening now and we need to add this? Because I feel like you teaching technologists, and I've had this in my own experience as well, like when you go and you teach a bunch of developers or people in DevOps or people who know technology well, like they poke and prod at the system. So was this like you had the foresight in advance? You knew this was coming because you knew your audience? Or did it happen a couple of times and you were like, okay, we've got to find something?
Yeah. So we've had a lot of experiences with our audience. It's a very tech audience, right?
Yeah.
And because we've been running labs for about 7 years, and almost every day we have people trying to crypto mine in our lab. We shut them down. And we have this whole process now to tackle that. And we've been kind of fighting them for 7 years. And in fact, we've gotten like, originally we had like a lot of restrictions, as in like you had to sign up and you had to be a paid member to access the lab. And over the years, we've figured out ways to kind of ease that. And now you can even access labs without like signing up at all, right? And then there are ways that we figured out ways to kind of block people who are like the bad actors. But yes, this is like very common for us, like people, it's a tech audience, they try to do all sorts of things. And but in this case, I want to mention, because every time we build new things, it's so exciting that you just want to build and you want to get it out. And you don't always like think things through, but like because we have had these experiences, we have started to take things slow and kind of think things through. So the first time this was released internally as a project just for internal audience, we had the other developers go in and do all sorts of things.
Yep.
So it was, we caught it internally early, and I had to add this in place.
Thank you so much for that thorough demo. Very cool. Not how I expected that architecture diagram to look, and very cool to see how all of that looked under the hood. Because you've given me the gift of that architecture diagram, I would like to give you the gift of spamming you with a bunch of really difficult questions, just as we go to the end here. So this is a rapid fire round. I'm going to ask you some questions. I'm going to ask you if things are overrated, underrated, if you disagree or agree. Is Kubernetes overrated or underrated?
Always going to be underrated for me.
All right. Generative AI for debugging, overrated, underrated?
Underrated. It's a game changer. I don't think enough people are using it well.
Is training still worth it in the age of AI, where like the AI can just do it for me? Like, why do I need to learn anything?
Yeah, absolutely necessary. I think it's more important than ever now to learn and build the foundations and kind of build broader knowledge. So
not necessarily needing to be the expert in every single thing, but knowing a little bit about these broader fields and tying them together. Okay. Formal certifications, overrated, underrated?
Underrated. I think people have the right idea about it. There's been a lot of debates around certifications, and if they're necessary and everything. But yeah, I think it's important for some people, maybe not important for everyone. I would say slightly underrated.
AI is replacing teachers. Do you agree or disagree?
Disagree. Of course, AI is never going to replace teachers. I think teachers are going to find better ways to teach with AI. And as we have been finding, we're kind of coming up with a lot of new tools and initiatives internally. I think it's going to be a big game changer. A lot of ideas I had a couple of years back on kind of building like really new creative ways to teach, like very hands-on ways to teach, were not possible back then because we were always resource constrained. But I'm like, now everything and anything is possible. So I think there's teachers are going to get a lot more tools, new tools to teach.
Degree requirements. So we talked about certifications. Degree requirements, underrated or overrated?
I think it's slightly overrated. I think there's a big change that's happening in the industry. I guess a lot of people are no longer looking at degrees. We're looking for people who has the skills and I guess the right attitude and are the right culture fit.
Python as your first programming language, overrated or underrated?
I would agree with that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh man, those are fighting words. I'm a JavaScript guy myself, but I think that's fair. I think that's fair. I think there are a couple that people start with and are a good fit. Linux fundamentals are still needed. Agree or disagree?
Agree. Couldn't agree more.
Cloud cost optimization, overrated or underrated?
Underrated.
Underrated. Yeah. It seemed like going through your diagram, like you had thought very carefully about the costs associated with each step along the path. So if that hadn't been your answer, I would have been shocked. Developer burnout is getting worse. Agree or disagree?
Agree. Very much agree. I think, like, as I was saying earlier, we're now spending a lot more time burning through midnight oil. And I mean, you just can't stop right now because there's so much that you feel like you can do. And yeah, so it's definitely, I definitely agree with that.
Soft skills in DevOps are as important as technical skills. Agree or disagree?
Agree. I think this is probably one of the most important skills that people don't value enough. And I think it's going to be very important going forward, especially that like a lot of technical stuff AI can help with. Is going to be very important. How you present things, how you communicate it, how you manage things. I think this is now very much important.
The future of IT roles is promising. Agree or disagree?
I agree. I think I have a slightly different opinion to AI's impact on jobs than I guess most people. I think jobs are going to be different in industries. Companies are going to look different. Maybe the larger companies would be lesser going forward, and there will be more smaller companies and people doing a lot more work with AI's help. But I don't think jobs are going to get impacted, at least not in the near future.
I love that vision. I'll have to have you back on in a year or so, and we can hash that out to see how many of these predictions played out. Thank you so much, Mumshad, for being here. Any last words you want to leave folks with? Anything you want to tell folks that we didn't get to today?
No, I mean, thank you so much for having me on the show. And I wish everyone good luck in learning AI and upskilling yourselves and continue to learn. I think one of the questions I often get is like people are worried what to do, and there's a big change happening. And I often try to tell them like there's been many similar big changes that has happened in the past, especially in the recent past, right? I think if you look at the last kind of couple of decades, I myself, I remember like going through. I started with my career in the storage space, like storage area network, and then I moved into the VMware, learning VMware because everyone moved to VMware, so we learned VMware, and then there was this whole change into into the cloud space, and then everyone started learning cloud and AWS and Google, and getting all those certifications, and then it was Kubernetes and containers. So we all kind of moved to learning Kubernetes and containers. So we've done this a bunch of times in the past, especially in the past couple of decades, and this is another time to learn and upskill. And I guess move to the next phase. So I think you should just look at it like that. and just continue to learn and evolve to the whatever is coming next.
Well, I think on that optimistic note, we will go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you so much, Mumshad, for joining us this week on my first ever episode as host of the Agent Factory. Please let us know in the comments what you'd like us to talk about on the next episode. Glad to have you here, and we will see you in the next one. But for now, we are powering down.